Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello. Hey, Jacksons. I didn't expect to see Boston. Hey.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, Rich. Hey, Ben. Hey, Kelly.
Hi.
Michelle.
If I start doing names, I'll miss somebody. So just hello. Oh, man, this is tough. I'm going to start in a little bit, but we're obviously going to give people time to get in here. But it's really weird already because I look at your faces and I want to smile. Like, I want to smile because I love you people. But we're here for like not so happy reasons. It's already like an emotional kind of seesaw, I guess you could say. So on that, I'm going to shut up. We're just going to look at each other come in. Hey, Nunu. Antoine, that's my brother down there. So we'll just give people a time to get in. I started the meeting on what is known as white people time, but we're going to linger. We're going to linger for the sake of others. Amen. So hang in there. If you see somebody on here that you haven't seen in a while and you want to feel free to do that.
Hey, Robin.
Hey,
I didn't know who you was drinking that drink.
it's ginger ale. Although I should be drunk, but it's ginger ale.
Michelle, how many people do you see? How many people do you see on here?
Right now I see, it's hard to say because I'm kind of being producer and
24 people on this call.
thank you.
And I know this because I'm in the participants window, which is at the bottom. And if you click on that, you'll see the participants on the right-hand side.
So I'm not sure.
Oh, I can scroll and see people. Okay, I see people's faces.
You can
I'm
also
not sure if at
change.
some point the waiting room closes or if people just get in all at once. I'm not sure, so we'll see.
I think they can get in any time, but I'm not sure.
Well, we'll see.
Am I the only one laying down?
So far. So far, it's just you, brother.
Okay,
I'm
well,
laying down inside, Antoine.
come on. Right. Let me get up for this topic because we've been laying down already. Yesterday ain't safe. Ain't safe.
I'm not sure. I'm trying to see. I said I was going to do this live on Facebook, and I'm not sure if it's actually over there. I'm going to try something really quick. Well, it says it's happening. Is there any way to confirm that? I'm looking on my Facebook page, and I don't see a live happening. So I don't know. I'm gonna try it again. Give me just 1 minute, everybody, and I'll figure out what I'm doing. I'll try to anyway. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not looking at. I'm just gonna hit go live. It's asking me. So many questions when you do stuff, right? It's asking me where's my title.
Michelle, I'm looking at your timeline, so when I see something happen there, I'll tell you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, here it is. I typed in a title, but that's weird. So I typed in a title. It's interactive. Ah, no, come on. So I typed in this title, but it won't It's not giving me to go live yet. I'm not sure. Might have just happened.
I just saw a message on my screen that says meeting is now streaming live on Facebook.
Awesome. Okay, then I think we're good. That voice sounded familiar. I see it.
It's Jim Hancock.
Yep, I was gonna say that's a voice.
Yep, you're live.
Meeting is now streaming live on Facebook.
All
Yep.
right, sweet. So I'm gonna close. That's so many windows open right now, so shut a few things down. And okay,
Oh yeah, right. New computer.
that's still live. It's already here. Okay.
Yeah, nice.
Hello, everyone. This is
One that was functioning.
this is the first time I've ever done this on a lot of different levels. It's my first time doing a live group. And I'm already making mistakes because I'm being my own producer at the same time as I'm going to try to be a part of this conversation as well as facilitate something like a conversation. So as much as we can be in this together, I would appreciate that. Antoine, I'm going to have you mute the mic right now because I imagine you're going to make noises that I don't. And
I'm not gonna make no noise.
just kidding. I'm kidding. All right. So let me just say, let me start off this way. I'll tell you what prompted this gathering, this town hall. And let me see. I don't know how. Anyway, I'm just gonna get us going.
It's becoming quite an issue.
Okay.
Sorry, I was hearing you and I was going back and forth.
Okay. What prompted?
No, you're great. I love it.
Not a big discussion.
I don't know who that is.
I just
Somebody's talking.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
We're working on it. It's coming
I
together.
think it's a lot of it's social media.
Okay.
But it's huge.
What prompted this post that you're all responding to?
I was kind of, I did, and then
Okay.
You can mute everybody.
Yep,
you
I
can
see
mute
it. I
everybody.
see it right now. I got it.
Look at Lacey's reaction.
Got it. All right. So you'll have to unmute yourself from this point, okay, everybody? Woo, good Lord. This is a lot. I needed a crew. Okay. What prompted the post that I put up was I was just scrolling online last night, just probably like a whole bunch of you. And I think I just scrolled up on a friend of mine's post, a white friend of mine who would call themselves, and I would say that they're an ally of Black Lives Matter type things. And I saw their post, and while it made me thankful for them, I suddenly had this like immediate second thought of that's not enough. Whatever they said, I don't even remember. I'll be quite honest with you. I don't remember what they said. I just remember seeing their post and thinking that's not enough. And that was kind of my first time having that thought because typically I am thankful, grateful, appreciative of the journey that a lot of people, particularly white people, have to take to become what's called an ally these days. And so it kind of struck me a little bit that my first impulsive thought or feeling was that whatever their sentiment was, it wasn't enough today. And so I thought, well, what do I want from them? If what they said is not enough, and if them not coming to the conversation is not enough, then what is it that I want from them? And honestly, it took me like all night and probably most of today to really kind of come to some objective of my own. Now, I'll share what that objective is, but I want you guys to know that this is Michelle Lang Raymond's, objective. I'm still getting used to that. This is my objective, my personal objective. This is not necessarily the objective of the gathering or the conversation. This is my objective and the reason why I wanted to chat with white folks today. And there is not an overall objective of this time together. Maybe if we do it again, we'll come up with some objectives, but I didn't really want to subject this kind of organic together moment to something as corporate as an objective or whatever. So, so there's that. I'll get to my objective. I'll get to what my sentiments and my objective were for a second. But let me just tell you a couple things about the call that we should attend to. We'll probably be on here about 1 hour and 15, hour and a half. That's how long I've designated for it. So about 1 hour and 15, hour and a half, depending on how we're doing. The Zoom is live and it is being recorded. So if you don't want to be live, then now is your time to leave if you want. But I just want to make sure you know that it is live and it is recorded, and it'll probably be posted at some point somewhere. Like I said, in a minute, since I'm the one that kind of called us together, I'll sort of express to you what my sentiments and my objective is in the conversation. But after that, what I think I want to do is have 4 white people talk, and you can sort of share your opening or your sentiment, maybe for a minute or 2, not much longer than that. And then after the 4 white folks, then we'll have 4 Black folks do the same. And then after that, we'll have people of color who do not necessarily represent as Black chime in if you want to. And that's how it's gonna go, at least to get us started. Is that like the best way to do this? I don't know. Is that the worst way to do this? I don't know. It's the way I'm gonna do it. So we'll see, okay? And we're just gonna talk, you guys. Obviously this is not an action group. It's not a policy making group or anything like that. We're just gonna try to talk and see if there can be some good that come out of us talking. I think the last thing I'll say before I share my objective is I'm not making any speeches about safe space, and I'm not making any promises about safe space because either it is or it ain't. And I've just never been in a place where we're having long speeches about making something a safe space has proven particularly productive. If the conversation gets heated, I'm okay with that, as long as we're being one or two things: productive and healthy. Productive as a group, productive as an individual in terms of what you feel like you need to say, and healthy. And I mean healthy more so for you as an individual first, and then healthy for the group. So I have control of all the buttons. So if at any time I feel like it's not those two things, you know, I'll step in and, you know, see. We'll see what we'll see. Does that all sound good? You can thumbs up it or high five it or any of that. I am not usually nervous in these spaces, but I just got nervous. And I hate that. And I don't even know if it's nerves or what. I don't know. All right. So, like I said, I saw somebody scroll. I was scrolling and I saw somebody post something, and I thought that's not enough. And when I asked myself the question, what do you want from people? What do you want from white folks then? I thought, I want them to feel shame.
Yeah.
That's really what I thought. I want them as a community to feel shame, excuse me. And when I thought that, I had the thought, I was like, you know, the problem though is that generally speaking, white folks don't feel themselves to be a community of people. There's not a communal white folks. It's sort of like white folks, over in my observation and in the way I've done my study and my work, white folks don't see themselves as a community of people as much as Black people do or people of color do. And so this idea that there can be a communal shame might be a lost idea, but it's what I want right now. Like, do I love allies? Do I love all of that? I do. But what I sense right now, after looking at the George Floyd murder, after looking at Amy Cooper call the cops purposely on a Black man in the park, knowing that just in 10 weeks, we've had no less than 6 incidences of Black people losing their lives at the hands of white people, unarmed Black people losing their lives at the hands of white people, particularly white law enforcement. What I thought was, what I hope and what I want right now is that white people feel a sense of communal shame. And my words might not be the best words. Maybe I mean guilt, maybe I mean fault, maybe I mean something else, I don't know. But the phrase I've come to right now is a sense of shame for recent events and even for historical events. And the reason I think that's where I land today is I'm a child of, I grew up in the 80s. And in the 80s, Black people were made to feel or absorb sort of this communal shame for anything that an individual Black person did. This is my truth now. Everybody might not agree with me, and I'm not assuming you do. But I remember being a teenager in the 80s, and whether it was about the crack epidemic or the high school dropout rates or the pregnancy rates or anything that was nefarious behavior, the whole Black community somehow had to absorb the ugliness of it. So I had to feel a kind of way because of what my people did. That's sort of the burden Black people had to live with, is like we had to absorb, we just had to absorb the whole burden of whatever our people did. And whatever an individual of my kind did, I had to absorb that. And I had to adjust my life to absorb that. And I don't think that was right, but it was the truth. It was the truth that we were fed and that we sort of fed each other even. And right now I'm sitting here in this moment and I kind of want white people to know what that feels like. I kind of want white people to know I want you to know what that feels like. But what I think prevents that is white people don't have a communal we. And so this idea that each of these instances are because of one bad white person, as opposed to, no, this is stuff that's systemically happening historically. I think that's a hard truth for a lot of white people to swallow. But from my perspective, I think it's a truth that you need to swallow. Me saying it is not gonna make you do it. I'm just telling you that's how I feel today. And if you wanna be an ally to me or to people who face this every day, then I think that's where a place that you need to start. So I think that's all I really wanna start with. And I'll open the floor to anybody that wants to talk. Like I said, I'll start with 4 white folks, and then we'll have 4 Black folks, and then 4 people of color, or however many people of color. If you want me to know that that's you, then you can indicate that in the chat, and we'll just kind of go in the order that pops up. I'm still trying to figure things out over here. So is there anybody that would like to speak now? And you can have your sentiment, or you can take something from mine that you want to respond to.
I think I'd like to speak if I can.
Yep.
I think you're right. White people do not have a sense of community at all. I don't feel any connection to white, and I never have. And that's what makes this so hard, is because we can't apologize. We can't, like, for me to say I'm sorry doesn't mean anything because it's just me. And there is no communal sense of justice. It's just every white person for themselves. And, you know, Um, I think that's why there's these groups of people that band together and declare themselves a certain, attitude or a certain way, because there's just no cohesiveness to white. And it's really frustrating. And I've spent time in Inglewood, California. I lived there for 3 years. And I think I grew up in a racist family. And I was scared when I lived in Inglewood. And I learned to actually relax and realize that there was a space for me there, and learn to love, in a lot of ways, all the diversity of the world. But it breaks my heart when I see these things happen, and it's systemic. It's at the root of the system that allows for this to happen. And because there's no cohesiveness in the majority, we can't, it feels like we have no power. We have no voice. It feels like this stuff happens, and it happened in Minneapolis. And I feel it all the way to my heart, right? But it's like, I don't feel like I have any way to say I'm sorry, to say that, wow, this is really messed up. And I feel the feelings. I mean, I feel your pain. I feel it. And I don't know what to do about it.
Thanks, Chris. I think John Archer is going to chime in here.
Yeah, thank you. Before I share, first, I really want to say thank you, because I think this is probably one of just a handful of times that I've been in an experience where a diverse group of people come together to talk about something really heavy and really deep. And unfortunately, I think there's a great need for this to happen much more often than it does. So before I even share any of my thoughts, I wanted to say thank you, Michelle, even as hard as it is and confusing and new and technical on your end producing it. That this is an amazing experience that I'm confident will end up benefiting a ton of people. I agree with what Christopher was saying, that a point you brought up is very valid. There is not a singular white community or white identity. And as a result, there's a lack of maybe responsibility or accountability. Christopher talked about not having a way to respond as an individual because we're not necessarily part of a larger collective. Because for hundreds of years, this construct of race has really been used to develop hierarchies, which result in power and oppression, right? And as a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male cisgender heterosexual, I'm at the top of this sort of privilege pyramid, right? All of those systems exist to benefit me and people like me. And something that you said, you didn't say it exactly this way, but for white people, that is our world. That is the norm, right? I can remember 7 years ago, I took a course, and we did this activity where we were given a note card and we were asked to write down like 5 parts of our identity. And there was this interesting result where not a single white person in the room wrote white as part of their identity, but several people of color wrote that was very much a part of their identity. And for me, that was an experience that was really helpful in understanding that my experience as a white person is different and that matters. And I think what makes this so hard for a lot of white people, based on my experience, is that things like that and things like this today are not they're not happening enough to meet us where we are. I think a lot of white people conceptualize race and racism in its most extreme terms, right? Well, I'm not a part of the Klan. I'm not out doing this. So I have nothing to do with that. That's not me at all. And totally have no concept of all the underlying systemic structures of whiteness and oppression and racism. And that's really where we need to be educated to dig in deep and do our own self-reflection and say, you know what, that might have been rooted in my whiteness, in my power, in my privilege. And I need to reflect on that, and I need to be checked on that.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff just doesn't happen enough. And so, you know, even now, I was thinking of this meeting going, what am I going to say? And I'm like, I could share. And I didn't know if I would talk or not, but I think so much more of my job is to listen, you know,
Yeah.
and that's hard for people.
Thank you. Lance, Lance Chamberlain, we're going to go to. Just look for the redhead beard.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
My name's Lance, and I'm a recovering racist. I think all white people are recovering racists. It is a collective sin. And we are all part of it, even if we don't use, like John was talking about, even if we don't use those overtly racist terms or are part of some kind of blatantly racist group. All white people are racist. It's a system, it's a group, I listened to a Facebook Live by Andre Henry yesterday. I don't know how many of you know of him or follow him. He's an incredible man. And he said, if you don't know him, look him up. He's good. And the part of that whole Facebook Live that stood out to me, it was like 20 minutes long, is when he said, people that love their whiteness can never love Black people. And I think there's so many ways that white people love their whiteness and they don't even know it. We don't even know what it is we're loving, but we love it because maybe it's the standard. Maybe it's what we see every day. And that's part of whiteness. And as long as we attach to that, as long as we love that, we cannot love Black people. And that was heavy, and that was true. And I do need to, personally, but collectively, we need to sit with that and understand the gravity of that. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I see different people in the chat who are willing to speak. I'm gonna jump. I think that was 3 white men. So I'm gonna jump to a woman, and I'm gonna go with Rachel.
So I just want to say thank you for doing this, Michelle. I'm stuck in Tacoma with COVID-19, living with conservative parents and racist, homophobic, sexist grandpa across the street. So when all of this happened, I was disgusted and very ashamed of white people, and just didn't, if anyone's ever lived with family members who just don't agree, don't get it, it can be very personally unhealthy to just constantly fight every single day over it. And so I'm just really thankful to be able to do this and listen and have space. So I just want to say that, and that you're a badass. But I also wanted to agree with, I think what everyone is, all the white people are saying is, there's a reason I so closely identify with the LGBTQ plus community, the body positive movement community, the recovery community. And it's because I don't feel any connection to my race. It's never been a thing. And so I just wanted to echo that. But also, I wanted to agree with what was said is when I saw last night what had happened, I also thought, like, I'm very active on social media, but my first thought was me posting about it is not enough. And so my hope from this is to learn and hear what my next steps need to be, especially as someone who was raised in a house where protesting is not encouraged or okay at all. You just do what the government says, you don't make waves. And as a privileged white person, just really wanting to hear what my next steps need to be for the Black community. And also just to raise the point of white women, especially with Amy Cooper, was it? And just her feeling threatened is enough to call the police on a Black man, which was completely unnecessary. And just, you know, there's a real reality of women feeling unsafe around men. Like that's part of sexism and all of that. But I think as white women, we need to stop and think, okay, do I feel threatened because he's a man and he's making advances at me and he's threatening my safety? Or do I feel unsafe because it's a Black man? And I think that's just something white women need to address. We like to, I think it's just something that is not always necessarily brought up when we talk about white people and what we need to do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna switch lanes. Robin Henderson, I think, was the first African-American person to say she wanted to speak, so I'm gonna go to her.
Hi, everybody. So I'm sitting here and I've been in tears this whole time. This has really affected me in more ways than I thought it would. One, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a mother. I have 2 sons. I have 5 daughters and I have 2 sons. I have 11 grandchildren, 1 on the way, and 10 of those will be boys. All of them African American. And all of them I have to worry and think about, is something going to make some person who carries a badge decide that today or tomorrow will be the day that one of my babies has to be on the floor, on the ground, called on for something stupid, like not wanting to follow the rules. How do you decide that you are going to, with your privilege, weaponize my baby as he's standing there telling you to follow the rules, and you're going to call the police and say, someone is attacking me and he's African American? Those are the words that are used, not that someone is just attacking me, but there's an African American that's doing this. There's an African American there's accosting me. There's an African American male who is accosting me, who is causing me problems, who is doing this, who is doing that. In my own personal family, I have 13 African American males that I worry about. I am a Christian, I'm a minister. I love God with everything in me. And yet I'm still so angry. I'm so angry. I'm angry that someone thought it was okay to put their knee in the neck of a young man as he called for his mother. That ticks me off. And yes, I am, I feel like Michelle in that when we as a collective body of African American people have things going on, we take on the feelings of this either shouldn't have been done or maybe this should have been done. Whereas we can tell sometimes just by the response of the white people that are in our lives, or just people in general, where there's nothing being said. I think more often than not, when I sit back and I watch and I go, well, it doesn't happen again, but enough is enough. And try as I might, I served my country. I was in the Navy. My husband was is a retired Marine. We have served our country. And I expect so much more, and I don't know why I do, because this crap has continued to happen over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I'm quite honestly sick of it. And I'm sorry, I will shut up here in a second, but I just wanted to share that it just sickens me that this is happening. And I get that while the white people may not have a connection to one another in this, somewhere along the line, there needs to be an outcry, especially if you know that if I stand by you at a church, if I give my money at the same time you give your money in the church, if I stand by you when things are going well or bad in your life, something needs to be done. There needs to be an outcry where you all say, I'm not going to say they, that where you all say, as the white people that are on this Zoom and on the live, wherever, enough is enough. Enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
When will you all stand? Not all of us are out to do any harm, and we just want to live like you do.
Mm-hmm.
We pay our bills, we pay our taxes, we do all the things that you do. When is enough going to be enough? And when will you all stand with us and say, we're sick of this like they are?
Mm-hmm.
And if it just, what if the roles were reversed and it happened to you all the time, and we as the Black race were the ones that were causing these different issues? Would you outcry then? Would you stand up then? Would you expect us to stand with you? Okay, because I really actually feel like cussing, so I'm trying not to go there, Miss Michelle, and so I'm gonna give it to the next person, but thanks for allowing me to speak. God bless you all.
Thank you. I think one of the things we can do is if something that somebody says resonates with you, you can say so, or you can let it be known in the chat window to the right. And the reason I say that is because, you know, Robin, you just said you keep hoping for better and you're not sure why you do. A serious sentiment within our community. Well, I'll say for me, it's a sentiment that I agree. I keep hoping for better, and I'm not sure why I keep hoping for better when historically, when this treatment and this dismissiveness, the treatment and the dismissiveness of the treatment is historical. And so if I'm praying anything for myself, it's like, I don't know why I keep hoping, but I do. So that you said that, Robin, stands out to me. I lost track a little bit. Minty Long Earth represents as Native American or Native and Black. So I'm gonna let her jump in here.
Thanks, Michelle. I want to thank you for doing this, and I want to acknowledge the Black men that are sitting here today, because I'm so glad you got home today. It seemed like we got to worry about that every damn day. I come from the Raccoon Clan. I'm Santee. I'm a descendant of Muskogee Creek and Choctaw people. I'm a descendant of African Americans from the Deep South. I'm a descendant of Scottish people, specifically Irish Scottish people from McNeil Clan. And I am a racial equity manager in my work place. And I have a son, and Michelle knows my son. My son is a beautiful young man, 22. And I'm so glad he doesn't drive. I am so glad that he doesn't like to go around people. I am so glad that he sits in his room most of the time and pretty much is to himself. I'm terrified every time he tells me he wants to go for a walk. I'm just terrified. And I don't want to give him a constant source of fear, but I belong to two communities where I'm part of a community where we're less than 2% of the whole population, but we're 5 times more likely to disappear at the hands of non-Native people. I start off my workshops by asking people to raise their hand by how many friends they know that have disappeared and never been seen again. And Native people will raise their hand over and over and over again. I think about my son. I think about what's happened. I cannot get out of my head this man calling for his mama. I can't get past it. It just kills me to think that this is what our country was founded on. Its governmental principles were put in place for this to happen. This is exactly what was supposed to happen. It will recalibrate itself if we do anything to disrupt it, unless and until we have our white allies that are willing to do some specific things that frankly most white people are not conditioned to do, and that is to give up part of your privilege to make room for everyone else's. And that looks real difficult. Even when you talk about rights that Black people have for reparations, white people will freak out. Just that very conversation is too much. The fragility is what gets in the way of the change. The fragility and the unwillingness to acknowledge that in every single moment in living in America, if you are designated as white, you have an up on everybody else. There are privileges and rights afforded to you that will never be afforded to my son in his lifetime. And I'm looking at my grandkids, and Michelle, I just gotta say, like, they're mixed, and I tell them they are Black children. I don't tell them they're biracial. I don't fall into that, because their other grandmother, that's a Trump family. And they believe very strongly in what happened is not racially motivated, and it's our fault for being race baiters. This is what I do for a living, and I can't have the conversation with people in my own family. And so I feel hopeless today. I feel absolutely hopeless. I couldn't get work done. I couldn't focus, and I couldn't find the bandwidth to expand my humanity to allow for white people to ask me to do their labor for them so that they could have somebody to resonate with their pain with. So I really, really love that Michelle has this room full of people and we're all just here. And this shit hurts. Oops, sorry, I cussed. Stuff hurts. And we're standing in that discomfort. And that is the first thing that we have to do, is be willing to stand in that discomfort and acknowledge that what's going on is not natural, but it was planned.
Yeah, planned and applauded. Yeah, thank you. iPhone number 2, I think that's Trish.
Yeah,
so-
that's me. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Oh, good.
First of all, Michelle, I agree with everyone else. Thank you for having the courage to put this together. I applaud you for that, because it does take courage to be willing to be transparent and vulnerable with this topic. I think for me, let me first admit, I didn't watch the video because I can't. I know my capacity. I cannot watch it. Just reading the statements of what happened was enough for me. I could not and I cannot watch it. And it did something to me. It took me to a place that I'm not familiar with. Like, I didn't even know those thoughts could possibly be laying dormant in my mind. And so I, being a praying person, I had to steal away last night and just pray, really, really pray for myself. And in that, I was thinking, when you think about the civil rights movement and everything, and and how far we thought we had come and how much further we know we have to go. It was like, okay, so what did they do? What was different? How did they make a difference? And even in the process, we lost a lot of good people in the process. And I think one of the things is we have to pay attention, because a lot of times laws and policies get into place with us watching, and we don't participate in the process. And so I'm talking to me. I'm not necessarily saying anybody else. Don't participate in the process. Don't go to council meetings.
Yeah.
Don't go to the state capitol and walk through the doors of the legislation to really see what the process is, to have a voice, not even knowing that we have the opportunity, that we don't have to have an appointment in order to be heard, in order to make a difference. And so I challenge myself with, what am I going to do differently? Besides just being and participating in this platform, what am I going to do? Do I even know who or where the council meetings take place? Do I know what those police policies, what do they state? What do the laws say? And, that's my commitment, is to really start examining things and really delving in and either stopping it before it happens, or going in to make the changes necessary, demanding the amendments to some of these laws and things that make it okay.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, what do they teach police officers?
Mm-hmm.
How are they trained? Can we change that? How do we change that? I believe that we can change it, but it's going to take some full action and more than just talking about, we've got to go and see about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. I feel like you're better than me today, because I know they don't train police officers to kill unarmed people. I already know some stuff that I don't feel like we need to study or create new policy for. And I'm not discounting what you're saying at all, Trish. I'm saying those, to me, like, that's really long term. I feel like what's happened in the last 2 weeks alone defy laws and policy and common freaking sense. It defies righteousness. It defies anything that is on the books. Or I'm not saying it very well, but I just feel like what we've seen in the last 2 weeks is beyond. It's just beyond. And so let's as you back up for a second, right? If you just go to Amy Cooper in the park, that's not law enforcement. Now, the fact that she felt okay to call law enforcement because she thought that law enforcement would reinforce her fear and her fragility and her hate, a whole nother thing. But I agree with you. But at the same time, I also feel like that feels like it's our responsibility to make white people better again. I feel like, and I know that's not what you mean, sis, and I'm just talking, okay?
Sure.
That makes it my responsibility once again to make white people be better, make white people act better. When I saw the Amy Cooper video, and I watched that one way more than I only watched George Floyd once. But when I watched the Amy Cooper video, what I thought was, what really sucks is I know a lot of white women. I have a lot of white women friends and a lot of white women associates. And that Amy Cooper video makes me look at them, not police. It makes me look at them like that's in you. And that's beyond a policy or a law or anything else. That makes me look at white women that I like and love. It makes me look at them and say, the capacity for that is in you. Because I'm sure Amy Cooper works with a bunch of black people who didn't think that was in her. And so I agree with you about deeper systemic stuff that we got to be careful about going to city council and voting and all of that stuff. You're 100% right. You're 100% right. And I really mean that. These two things can be true at the same time. I think in addition to what you're saying, or in the now of what you're saying, I don't want my activity, my responsible activity, to be an excuse or to be to be a way where white people still don't take responsibility for how they as a communal group act. And I just don't want that to get pushed under the rug anymore. So
yeah. And I totally agree with you, Michelle. I totally agree with you. I wasn't even addressing the Amy thing because I don't think I can. Because then I go to a place where Robin is right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand that. It frustrates me that you believe that you have the right to create chaos for somebody else, and not
just chaos.
Not well. That's what I was about to say. To the point where you're not even acknowledging what could have happened. You didn't even acknowledge that. So from my perspective, I'm talking, yes, I'm talking long-term change. As far as immediate change, I have not a clue.
Yeah.
Not a clue. I don't understand how you can feel the life leaving another human being's body and it not compel you to stop your action. I don't understand that. And we can have all the policies, you're right, all the policies and laws in the world. But if that's just in you.
Yeah. Thank you. I do know I have another Black woman on tap, Michelle, to speak, but I think it's ironic that the first 3 white people were white men and the first 3 Black people were Black women. So I want to make sure that a Black man speaks as well. So I'm going to break my number 4 just to make sure that happens. But Michelle, if you are available, I don't see your picture. Oh, there you are. So Michelle, if you look for Terry S., Michelle is going to share from there.
Hey, once again, Michelle, thank you for bringing this together, and really happy to see a real conversation where people are being honest about how they feel. And I would also like to take this time to be honest. I think earlier, a couple of people, white people said that they don't feel like there's a collective sorry that they can give because they don't have that kind of community thought. And so I want to talk about like some things that I think white people can do on an individual basis to help them to address these things if you don't feel this collective things that I think would be very unpopular for white people to do, but I think it's something that needs to happen because one, we're in a situation right now where there's a pandemic and everybody is already at a heightened sense of fear, right? And so if you're already at a heightened sense of fear, and then you have an underlying fear of Black people that you don't know, there's not anything, any training that can happen or anything that we can do to really change that situation. When you're fear, you're gonna do whatever it takes to address that fear. And I think in the Amy Cooper situation, like she's probably an asshole in general, which is why she's walking her dog and not like, didn't say, you're right, my bad, I was caught. Let me leash my dog and keep walking, right? So there's the general asshole-ness of her, but then there's like, I'm in a pandemic, I don't know if my dog's ever gonna get another chance to go out, and then this Black man just came out the woods, and I've grown up in a society where Black men coming out the woods seems to be something that I should be suspicious of, and let me take advantage of this and go and call the police because I know that they'll really come when it's a Black person because I'm not the only white person who shares this underlying view of Black people. And there's probably not anything that could have been done to keep her from doing that in that specific situation because it's unconscious. It's an unconscious thing that's going to happen when you're in fear and you're afraid. So how do you deal with this unconscious thing on an individual level? First thing I think white people need to do is hang around more Black people. And Black people need to be open to white people hanging around because sometimes white people come around and a whole bunch of Black people and we're like, why are you here? Do you have a takeover spirit? You try to take over my club? What you doing here? But I think like one thing, you just got to hang around more Black people, because Black people have to be around white people all the time. So we know things that you do that we need to account for. For example, at work, I know if I disagree with the white woman or white man above me, I'm gonna have to write a doc and send it to my manager because they're gonna try to go over my head. Where Black people at work will come directly to me and confront me about it outside the meeting. They're never gonna come to me, they're gonna be concerned that I'm gonna be too confrontational, and they're always gonna go over my head. So I better have some backup, and I better prepare for the person that's about to go over my head, because I work with white people all the time and I know that's gonna happen. But if you're not around Black people, you may not know that we naturally are okay with confrontation. We don't view all confrontation as bad. And so coming out the woods, we're not gonna be passive aggressive. We're gonna ask you, leash your dog, right? And that shouldn't be a need for you to call the police, right? Because that's not us being aggressive towards you. But if you don't hang around Black people, you're not gonna know that, and you're automatically gonna get defensive. So one thing you gotta do is just expand the people that you're around and start hanging around Black people. Second thing is, you can't be ashamed to talk to your old racist family members about their racism. I have so many white friends like, yeah, my uncle, my cousins are racist, my uncles are racist, my grandfather, but you know, I can't do nothing about that. Yes, you can. You can't change them probably. It might be too late, but you can let them know that you're not okay with it. You can, when they say something racist, you could be like, hey, that's not acceptable. This 2020, we don't talk like that no more. We don't think like that no more. This has been proven as wrong. This stupid. Why are you still doing that? Like, you can still do that. It will be uncomfortable. It won't be the best family gathering, but you guys, if you're family, you'll get over it. But you have to start standing up even to your family members, because I can't stand up to your family members. I'm the Black person that they don't trust, but you are their family. So you got to stand up. So that's one thing. And then another thing you can do is like raise the next generation. I think every white person who has kids should spend more time than I spend with my kids during Black History Month, period. You should tell them that the Brink system that they're using is created by a Black person. You should tell them that the reason why we can use Zoom is because a Black person created voice over IP, right? They should know all of these things so that when they encounter a Black person, they might think they encounter an inventor or something different, somebody who was a human computer, somebody that helped the first man go to the moon. They should think about Black people in that sense, instead of thinking about Black people in the sense of what they see on the news, or things that are very negative, or that we grow up poor, or that we hood, or that all these other things that are part of our culture, but is a part of everybody's culture. Everybody's culture got poor people. That's something that's part of every culture. But we got a lot of great people, and your kids should know that, and they should grow up around that, so that when they get older, that next generation won't automatically have assumptions about Black people. You should be teaching your kids. And if you're not educated enough to teach your kids, you should get educated. Not for me, because there's a plethora of books and videos and movies that you can watch. You should go get yourself educated and teach your family and your friends, and make sure that they understand who Black people really are, and not these people that are trying to attack you and harm you. And so I think those are individual things that you can do as white people to start addressing this, because if you're not gonna be, when you're afraid and fearful, you're not gonna be able to change your behavior right then. It has to already be ingrained in you that Black people are different, are not this thing that you should be afraid of. And so it'll be hard for us to change the previous people. The only thing we can do is mitigate it. For those who are already thinking like that, the only thing we can do is say, if you keep doing this, we're gonna give you some fines. We're gonna lock you up. We're gonna do this. We can mitigate it, but we can't change how they think. But you can change how you think, right? You can get proximate. You can educate yourself, and then you can raise your kids in the next generation to think differently before they already have these same ideations and conceptions. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you. I think the fact that Michelle is suggesting or presenting that you have to get yourself to think better about Black people is case in how systemic racism is so pervasive, and the fact that somebody has the idea that somebody has to say, you have to make yourself think better. That's a striking. Underlying ideas in that are more striking than the obvious thing that she just said. So, is there a Black man that we can hear from at this moment? Mike Wilson, I see you, but you just got here, and I want to make sure that some of the Black men who've been here
Hello?
don't get Antoine. Okay. Antoine, you go ahead, and then Mike Wilson, you can go after Antoine.
All right. Hey, so just real quick, I'm going to be really brief. This whole situation sucks. It's unfortunate, and you know, I guess I have questions about why would a white person, because I'm hearing people say, you know, we have no community, or we have no gathering position, you know, or no, we don't connect to a group, whatever. You know, you see a Black community center, you don't see a Caucasian community center, you know, because they don't, you know, that it's already theirs in their mind. My question is this though: why would a white person, and how can a white person give up his power on behalf of a systemically set up lower race? So how would he exchange his power coins? And why would you want to exchange your power coins to help a lower race? Like, what kind of things could you do? And so I'm thinking, in my mind, why don't white folks rally and go around that police department, just white folks, don't invite Black folks in there. You white folks, you guys march. Y'all march on these police. Y'all hold banners against this Amy lady. You guys get together. If there ain't no meeting spot that you know, assigned to, create your own community of white supporters for all equality. Don't just rally on the Black community or the Filipino or the Indian. Create your own support systems and groups. Because honestly, and I know this is all dreamland because of the way the world is set up and the system that's set up. A white person is not going to be able to exchange his power coin. And when he feels threatened, like Miss Amy did, and she didn't feel threatened out of fear that this Black man, she felt threatened that she didn't have power over him when she was telling him to turn that camera off.
Yeah, I feel like she was struck by the audacity of a Black man to tell her to follow the rules.
Right, exactly.
Which is a whole nother level of how systemic the idea of privilege is.
Right. And I think, you know, I got some white friends, and I think a lot of white friends who say, I'm not prejudiced. I think if you get them in a heated discussion, or you get them in a corner and you're an authoritative figure over them, something instantly will just click in them as a defense, and it will remind them of a power that they probably haven't used or don't use, but that do have. And, you know, you get folks in the corner, you never know what's going to come out. Mm-hmm. And I think that would come out just like I think that just came out of Amy. And maybe she's a racist. Maybe she practices that. Maybe she doesn't. But it just felt like she was challenged, and instantly her response was, I'm over you. You don't have any authority over me, mm-hmm. and I'm white. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell them that you're a lower race than me. I'm going to call these people and tell them that you're a lower race than me. And they're going to really come. It's like, does 911 have a extra button
for black? Right. For black.
Does police car have a green light?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just my thought. And I think it's sickening, but I think this is great to just hear and to listen, and not to make anybody feel guilty or even individually take responsibility as an individual. I don't think you're coming at white folks and saying you guys are the reason, or you guys need to. Well, I don't know what you say. I won't speak for you.
No, I am. I'm gonna be honest with you today. I am actually today, and I usually don't. I'm gonna be 100. I usually don't come at individual white people and say, get together. But today, I am talking to the individuals that are white, that belong to what I believe is a collective of whiteness. And I am saying, this is your fault. This is historically your fault. This is historically your fault, and this is currently your problem. When I see somebody post, I feel so bad for the Black community, or I'm in solidarity with the Black community, or I'm praying for the Black community. I really want to jump through a screen and let's just say pray for you. That's not what I mean. I really do, because I feel like this is not my problem. I did not wake up today and decide that I wanted to feel like my life was in jeopardy. I didn't wake up today like that. I didn't wake up today thinking I had the right for that. That's not my problem. You should not feel sorry for us. You should wonder, what the hell is wrong with my people? Why do my people keep doing this? Why do we have a propensity to do this? Why do we think it's okay to think like this? Why do we think privilege is so important to maintain that we will kill and murder, enslave and mistreat generations of people any old kind of way to maintain that privilege, to maintain that power? So normally, on most days, on most occasions, I don't think like this. On most days, I don't. Today, I do. Anson.
Hey, this is really a hard place to be. A hard thing to deal with, to wake up time and time again to see. And of course, I didn't watch the video. I haven't watched any of the videos of any of them because I can't bring myself to do that. I just don't feel like it's beneficial for me. I think other people need to see it. I think, yeah, white people need to see it. They need to see the pain. They need to hear him calling for his mom. They need to hear, I can't breathe. They need to see the blood. They need to feel it so that they'll actually take some action, so they'll actually do something. What is troubling to me, though, is that I have white friends. I have a lot of white friends. I work with a lot of white people. I love them, and I know that that many of them love me, and I think they all love me. But the difference between them loving me and actually wanting to take some action that would be beneficial to me, or actually showing some compassion, there's a difference there. Because what happens is it means that they have to get uncomfortable with where they are, with what they have. They have to get out of their comfort zone in order to do that. And they don't feel like they just don't want to. And that's one of the hard things. And that's some of that is the human condition. I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. And it's the same kind of discomfort I get when somebody asks me, and I've learned to season my answers. But when somebody asks me, what should I do? What would you like me to do? I want you to take some action on your own. Like if there was something that happened to a family member of yours, and you really wanted to help, you would research. You'd find out, what do I need to do? How can I help them? I mean, that's what I would do. I'd take out the time. If it was really important to me, I'd take the time to find out, to dig, to go and look up, what can I do? Because I love this person. I do understand. I just started reading White Fragility, so I'm starting to get that picture of how white people, they roll as individuals and not as a collective group. Whereas Black people, that's why we can walk in a room and we acknowledge each other. We look for the Black person. We look for somebody Black when we walk in a room. And that's why, I get that picture where they just they don't connect. They don't connect the dots. That this is somebody that looks like you doing this because they have the privilege that you have. And just the picture of seeing this officer with his knee on George's neck, and the look on his face, and his hands in his pocket, like he's on an animal, like he's on an animal.
Mm-hmm.
It just disgusts me. My mind, every time I see a picture, I go through my, and it's like every other post. This is in my face. And I'm wondering if my white friends, if it's really in their face like that, or are they just going by trying to find the next best thing. I don't know what they're looking for. Some of my white friends, yeah, granted, they are on top of it. They're digging, they're looking, they're compassionate. They're all about it. But it truly, if you really care, it's on you. It's on white people. It's on white people. If you're an individual, then individually go and look it up. Individually go seek out a way to be a blessing, to help, to do whatever you can. Talk to your councilman. Talk to your senator. Talk to your representatives. Go talk to your mayor. Find out why this stuff is happening. And you can make this change, make it happen. Like you scream about everything else, make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And last thing, I don't feel like Amy was scared of him at all. The way she walked up on him, telling him to turn that phone off, as though if she got close enough, she was going to take that phone from him and make him do something. I don't think she was scared. Like you said, I think that privilege was jumping up.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to tell me to leash my dog, and you're going to turn that phone off too, or I'm going to make somebody get you to turn it off. One way or another, you're going to stop this today. So I just feel like that privilege that some people just hold on to and just feel like this is my right. They don't even realize it. They don't even know it.
Mm-hmm. I think when Lance said earlier that he's a recovering racist.
Oh yeah.
I think when you're saying like they don't even know it, I think it jolts back to Lance. Lance, you can jump. Yeah. I'll let you. I think it jumps back to what Lance was saying is that, and it connects to what you just said, Doc, which is they don't even know it. It's like I do things so automatically. I do things on such instinct. I don't know that I'm doing that because I'm an internal racist, because I have racist tendencies. I don't even know. And I think, Lance, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. I'm not trying to speak for you, but I think there's a connection between what you're saying, Anson, and what Lance is said.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's these things that we don't even realize that we're connected to.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go to Mike Wilson in a minute, and then Rich Wars, you can. And I'm really just gonna open the conversation up for everybody at this point. But one of the things I wanted to say, something is happening in the chat where I think it was Ben, said he wants to speak up, but doesn't want to have a savior complex. Was that you, Ben? I'm not scrolling very well. He doesn't want to have a savior complex. And a couple of folks said, that's not a savior complex. Just be a leader, just be a person. And just doing the right thing. And it reminds me of I had a situation where I stood up for a couple of my friends who were gay, and they didn't thank me for it. And I was venting to somebody about it years later. I said I stood up for a friend of mine who was gay in the church, and I stood up for him, and he never thanked me. And the person looked at me and said, "Why you want to be thanked for just being a good person? Why do you need to be thanked for doing the right thing? You don't need to, like, why do you consider it I'm not saying, I don't know the full intent of your statement, Ben, but a lot of times white people have this sentiment that they're just doing such a Messiah thing. They're doing such an incredible thing. And it kind of, again, throws me back to when that person said that to me. It's like, you don't get extra credit for just being a good person. You don't get extra, like, nobody's gonna give you a pat on the back and make you feel good because you did the right thing for another human being, regardless of that person's color or whatever their orientation might be. You stop looking for extra credit, or stop looking for whether you're gonna get extra credit or not gonna get extra credit or be perceived as something. It doesn't matter. We all just have to do the right thing. At this point, we all just have to say, it doesn't matter how I come across. And I would say the struggle of you coming across as a savior means so much less to me than the struggle of George Floyd losing his breath. The struggle of you having to walk away from a conversation where you feel like maybe you didn't come across right or whatever, that means so much less than so many other things at this point. And so, yeah. I think Mike Wilson is the last person I said I would pass the mic to, and then after that, we can just talk as best we can with about 45 people at the same time.
So thank you, Michelle. I appreciate the opportunity to share. This is a powerful forum. I hope you do it again because this conversation needs to continue. I don't know if you're watching the numbers, but you're reaching a lot of people all over the country. We need to have this conversation. And as a middle-aged Black man who has kind of watched this thing evolve from 2008 till today, I just want to say to especially to the white people in here, you don't have to go around apologizing. What would be helpful in this whole process is just like what some other people have already said. Hold your community accountable. If you see racism in your community, if you know the conversations that you have, you know what people are saying, or the jokes that they make, or the way that they look at us when we leave the room, or the way that they act. If you really want to see change, hold your people accountable. Everybody's always talking to us about what we need to do for our youth in the Black community. We work hard at trying to help our young people to grow up to be strong men and fathers and all that. And so we're doing the work. Is there always room for improvement? Yes. But if there's work that we have to do in our community, there's also work you have to do in your community. I heard somebody say earlier, you feel like you don't have an identity. Maybe this is the beginning of discovering an identity for yourself. Saying, hey, we as the larger race, the larger population in this country, we have a responsibility to take care of those who, are not there's not as many Black folks in this country as there are white people. We have a responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. So hold people accountable. And as a matter of fact, a very practical step that could be taken after this, invite people to the next conversation. Even if they're being closed-minded, invite them to come and listen. Invite your racist family members, your grandfather, the people I heard you talk about earlier. Invite them to the conversation and just ask them to come in and listen. And then let's see what happens from there, because this is where it starts, and I think this is where it can grow. So thank you.
Thank you. I did tell, I'll continue to navigate who's gonna talk, I guess, so that we can all follow who's talking, but you can just keep letting me know in the chat that you would like to say something. So I'm gonna throw to Rich Ward, and then after Rich, I think Kristen has asked to talk a couple times.
Hi, thanks, Michelle. This is amazing. Let me just say that I'm marked by a racist family. And it wasn't until about 3 or 4 years ago that I started to say, I can't just live like all people are the same. And so this is my story, my journey. So I can't speak for others, but I know that my journey has been that I saw people, oh, we're all the same. God loves us all the same. And about 4 years ago, I was kind of confronted with the fact that this isn't true. That not all people are the same and all living different lives. And so I've been on a journey, and I feel like lately I've been I'm learning a language. I'm learning Spanish, and I've learned the vocabulary, but I'm kind of afraid to say it out loud because I don't want to offend or make a mistake. but I'm learning that I just have to enter the conversation. I just have to say to my white friends, that's wrong. What you just said is inappropriate. How you talk about Colin Kaepernick is wrong. My heart beats in my chest, and it's really super scary. But what I'm learning is the more that I step out in that fear, it's really helping me understand. The request I'm asking the people of color in my life is, if I say something wrong, call me on it. If I offend you, or if I'm obtuse, or if I say something awkward or that's hurtful, I need you to tell me about it, because I think my white privilege has clouded the things that I can see and what I can't see. And so I just want to affirm, number one, this conversation. I need more people of color in my life because I need to continue to learn. But until a person like myself, a white person, is willing to be uncomfortable, who's willing to say, this isn't right. Like, I'm a believer. I love Jesus with my whole heart, and he's drawn me in to see people the way that he sees them. And I've been changed, or changing, but it's only by God's grace that he's changing me. But I'm really scared most of the time that I'm going to say something wrong, that I'm going to hurt someone's feelings. And I'm getting a little emotional because I think that in my heart, I love God and I love all people, but it's unfair. And that's not a thing I'm used to feeling. So these are new places for me. So as a white person, I need your help. We need your help. I think that, Michelle, I think your heart is so amazing. And the fact that you are willing to put yourself out there is so great to me and inspires me. But I'm so new at this that I'm trying to do that. But I need to be more urgent. So here's my message that I'm hearing today. Even if I post praying for Floyd, pray, whatever it is that I post, it has to be deeper than that. It has to say more words. It has to, so I'm feeling the more of an urgency than I've ever felt before. Today was the first day that I actually listed African-American men who have been lost their lives, and you did a quote, and I had a string of people comment, my white people, and commenting what they liked or what they didn't like, or this stat was wrong. And man, I was just upset. But then I thought, no, this is what I need to do. I need to do more of this. I need to not just post praying for you or these slidey, they're good comments, but they're not deep enough. And so when you said that it's not enough of your white friend who posted, I completely agree. My question is, and maybe for all of us white people here, is not so much about what we should do, but what is the most supportive thing white people can do? What it's support to you specifically? Maybe not social activism or social justice, or there's lots of things we can do in the public, but what can we do for our close friends, for people of color? How can we care for you? Because this is a burden that you carry. Not only are you hit outside, but you have to carry this weight with your white friends. So that's a hard thing to do because you're kind of laboring on both sides. You're babysitting and walking with your white friends, but you're also battling battle fatigue from the racism on that other side. So how can we be supportive to you is my question. And that's all I want to say.
My answer right now, Rich, is really smug. I'm gonna say it because I said I was gonna be honest here, but pray for me. I don't need you to help me. I don't need you to. What's gonna happen is I'm gonna find my Black friends and I'm gonna get healed with my Black friends. That's what's gonna happen. This is just me. I'm gonna find my Black friends and I'm gonna go get cared for and loved and reminded. I'm gonna stand in a room some kind of way, whether it's a Zoom room or whatever. I'm gonna stand in a room and I'm gonna listen to Black people talk about what's good about us. That's what I'm gonna do. And then when I come out of that room, that metaphorical room, I'll have a little bit more grace and patience for white people again. you can't, I don't have an answer for what you can do to support me like that. I still say I would prefer right now for you to take all your energy and get at your people. That's what I say. Other people can say what they want. I'm not the only person that can respond to that question. That's my answer right now. I'm gonna go like T'Challa. I'm gonna go lay down and I'm gonna let my people heal me. That's what I'm gonna do.
And the crazy thing is, they're gonna heal you to love other white people.
To love white people again. That's what they're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna heal each other. They're gonna say Michelle, Anson, Antoine, Michelle, other people on this call. Michelle, we know you do a lot of interface with white people, so we're gonna heal you so that you get back out there. But that's what's gonna happen. That's what's gonna happen.
Right.
That's what's gonna happen. I'm not to try, Rich. I'm just telling you. I just need you. You said a couple things, Rich, and mind you, I said we were gonna go an hour and a half. Well, chalk it up to Black people time. You can step out whenever you want if you need to go. I get it. So I'll say this, Rich. You said a couple things. You said when you approach your people to talk, your heart beats, you get heart palpitations or whatever. And you said, and then when you are talking to Black folks, you're like, I hope I'm not going to say the wrong thing. I hope I'm saying it right. And it just made me think like those kinds of emotional and internal reactions are something like what Black people, especially Black men, feel every time they get pulled over by a cop. The heart races, they hope they say the right thing. They hope they don't move too fast. Black men and Black women. They hope they don't move too fast. They hope they have their license on them. They hope they say sir enough times. So I don't have enough I don't feel bad for you. I need more filters today or something. I just don't have them today, you guys. I'm not sorry. I just don't have them, but I
You
don't
don't need more. You don't need more.
I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad that your heart races because you're gonna have a conversation. I don't feel bad. Suck it up. Suck it up. Suck it up. Suck it up.
If you love me, suck
If
it
you
up.
love me, suck it up. If you love me, prepare yourself.
Right.
Not only that, Rich, but look at it this way. While you're feeling a heart palpitation over a conversation that you may be having, we are having heart palpitations on whether or not we're going to get home alive. We're worried about whether or not our children are going to get home alive. We're sitting there. I was pulled over recently, and I stood there, and when the police officer came to my car, I held my hands up. Now, he was a nice guy, but I don't take anything for granted, because at the end of the day, I need to go home. So while you're worried about how my friends going to look at this, I'm looking at, am I going to get home? Will I get there in one piece? Will my family's lives change if I put my hands down? And so allow us, if you will, and this is completely not all on you, but since you brought up that, since you brought that up, we'll just take it that way. It's not all on you, but we really don't have the time to feel like we have to carry you on top of trying to carry us. Let us carry us, and you figure out some kind of way to be in our corner without us having to give you all whatever it takes to get there. It's mind-boggling that we would have to carry you as well as us too.
I hear you.
Thank you.
I hear you.
I'm gonna go to I think I said Kristen. I'm gonna go Kristen, Lacey, Mike Dean, and Kelly. Let me say it again. Kristen, Lacey, Mike Dean, Kelly, Jim Hancock. Is Kristen here? Sorry, I'm out. Kristen's out right now. Okay, Lacey.
Hey guys, thank you, Michelle. I guess I just want to say, and I think, was it Michael Wilson, I think touched on this a little bit already, but I hear and identify with the experience of not realizing until yesterday, you know, or your mid 20s or whenever it was for you, that you're actually white because no one told you when you were growing up that you're white. Like, I identify with that and I hear that. And also, I guess I just feel like it's kind of being used as an excuse. Like, it's true that we don't have a giant collective community, but we have our like community bubbles within the giant collective. And I think we can still model for our smaller communities what it looks like to take on some of that shame as white people, and to, I guess, normalize recognizing yourself as a white person and everything that comes with that, so that people start doing it more often, and it becomes a collective community where we're able to speak out that shame that you were asking for at the beginning. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Thank you. Which I think, I'm not sure who said this earlier, it might be John. Every time I hear a white person say that their whiteness is not in the top 5 ways that they identify themselves, I don't know if I'm envious or something else. Because I think about Blackness every day, every hour, every day. I wake up every day and I'm a woman, I'm Black, I'm straight, I'm a Christian, probably in that order. And Christian is the only thing I choose every day. Everything else is what comes with the package. But I always think about being Black every day. And I don't know if I envy that you don't, or if I think you should be jealous that I do. I'm not sure. Mike D.
Michelle, you know I love you. This is
I
great.
know.
I just found out that it's on Facebook too, and it's going crazy on Facebook. You got to check out the comments and whatnot. But yo, man, thank you so much for hosting this. Like, I'm listening to what everybody's talking about. I appreciate everything everybody's dropped. A few things that, like, I literally couldn't sleep last night. I texted my boss at probably 1 a.m, said, yo, I'm taking a mental health day. Texted my bro Zoe, said, man, you know, let's get together tomorrow if you got time. Texted my staff, told them, you know, staff meeting's canceled, I won't be there. And literally today I done barbecued a slab of ribs. I done spent some time with the fam, like, just so this is helpful because I haven't posted anything.
So you went extra Black today.
Oh, listen, lunch was lit, okay? I'm talking about with ribs and baked beans and mac and cheese, and I just needed, you understand? Okay, but I just keep all of these things. Then Lonzo or somebody posted this, the week of Black events that's happened within the last 7 days, 3 of which I hadn't even heard of, including the Amy Cooper and the George Floyd. And Michelle, it's just like, yo, especially us who choose to be working in white spaces and want to be the bridges and the reconcilers and like doing the work that we feel called to. Today, yesterday, it just felt super hard. And as a big Black man, like I think for Black people in general, but a lot of times, I think we talked about this before, a lot of the cases I see, like this brother who's pretty tall himself, the size and the darkness of your skin adds, I think, a lot of times to the fear. Maybe I look more like a monkey because I'm darker and you think gorilla. I don't know what it is, but somehow these things seem to be linked. And with the Amy Cooper, it was crazy because when she couldn't get her way, she said, look, if you don't do what I say do, I'm about to use the police as a weapon against you. That's ultimately what she said. Like, you're gonna obey me, respect me, do as I say, or I am going to call the cops and use them as a weapon against you. And people say, well, no, the police, they're more mindful than that. They won't be a weapon against. But then you look at George Floyd and you see this, that was the badge. Why are all these people standing around watching the life leave his body, Michelle? They're telling the Asian cop, I'm sorry, if he wasn't Asian, I apologize. They telling the Asian cop, the man can't breathe. He's going limp. they're watching his life loop. Now, why didn't I talked to my pastor today for a good hour this morning, and we both were like, yo, if we were there, and I'm sitting there as a black man thinking like, what would I have done? Like, would I have risked my life and coming home to my kids to knock the dude off of them and then like jump on the ground and say, look, I'm not trying to be a threat. I just needed to get you off his neck. Like, I don't know, but it's just, it's crazy, and it gets harder and harder to keep trying to get over it. You know what I'm saying? Like, no one stays in a relationship this long with this many infractions the same way. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just harder and harder to keep having the conversation. But I agree. The call outs and the challenges to white people, I think, are spot on. Love is no longer like gonna be able to be tolerated as just this feeling word.
No.
That's never what it is. And that's never what it was. If there's no action to it that actually puts you in some kind of risk or forces you or calls you to sacrifice beyond yourself, maybe puts your reputation, your comfort, all of these things in jeopardy, then just use a different word. Say, I like you a lot. Say you're pretty, you're cute. Like, say something, you entertaining. Use something else. But especially in regards to this conversation, don't keep saying you love when you're not willing to risk.
Yes. Yes. You said such a strong statement. You said nobody stays in a relationship this long with this many injustices. Nobody, under normal circumstances, nobody would still be willing to stay in a relationship this long. And yet, white folks, good meaning white folks, are like, yes, hang in there with us. I'm still with you. Like, I don't know how long you want me to believe that. I don't know how long you want me. I don't know how long you want me to believe that.
Yeah.
And under what circumstances do you want me to believe that?
Yeah.
Kelly B. Go ahead, Mike, and finish your thought.
No, you good. No, that's it.
All right, Kelly.
Hey, Michelle, I do have something I want to say, but I noticed that my friend Portia also raised her hand, and she's a woman who's from Zimbabwe, and so she's here in White Oregon, where she's not seeing all the faces that she's used to seeing, and she has a real interesting perspective, I think, on what it is to be Black as a woman who's from the African continent. So I guess
Portia, if I overlooked you, Portia, I'm sorry. You go ahead and then
I'd be glad to speak afterwards. But I just think her voice is a unique voice in the mix here. So.
All right, thank you. Portia, I saw you and then I didn't see you. Are you still able?
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead, sis.
Thanks, Kelly. It's a few things. So maybe I want to start by challenging this idea that white people are not a community, because I think they are. And I think the power of that community is that it is invisible, or it masquerades as though it is invisible, but it is not. And I'll give you an example. With the two things that have happened recently with Amy and with Mr. Floyd, there were two things. The first one with Amy, when I woke up, I saw that CNN, the headline was, Central Park woman apologizes. And I thought, man, that's not the story. That isn't the story. But that was the accepted narrative. The second thing was concerning George Floyd. The police spokesman came out and said an ambulance was called for a man who was in distress. That became the narrative. And I just thought, as white people will hear that and accept that narrative. And there is something broken in that. And I think for me is this idea that there is a narrative that is put out that is palatable for white ears, that minimizes the pain of the Black person, and somehow tries to share the culpability of what has happened to the Black person. Like they did something wrong. They must have done something wrong. And the white people as a community have this, it's an unwritten agreement that, yes, we'll accept this story because this story fits more with the narrative of who we believe ourselves to be and who we accept Black people to be. And that's damaging. And I think there will begin to be some shifts if our white friends or allies, however one name they want to call themselves, if they would just agree and say that, you know what, we have accepted that things can be said about Black people in whatever space, even places like CNN or CBS, and we will accept it because it frames us in a way that we want to be projected to the world, and it always makes Black people seem not as innocent, irrespective of what has really happened to them. And the second thing is there is this collective short memory when awful things happen to African American, brown people, Latinx,
Yes.
however. There's a collective short memory, and
Yes.
we are all aflutter about what's happened now. We're all in shock, and yes, we're gathering in this forum, and this is wonderful. And I'm so thankful, Michelle, that you chose to do this. But come next week, Wednesday, this will have been forgotten. And for me, what scares me is the fact that when Black people commit the slightest of infractions, there is this vicious reaction, like the full strength of the law is just pointed in them, and they get to really feel it. But when it's a white person, they get to apologize, and that apology is Black people are supposed to forgive. That is our role. Whenever something goes wrong, we're supposed to forgive. And white people will land on their feet. Right now, people are congratulating Franklin Templeton for firing Amy, and these 4 policemen have been fired. But what they did was commit a crime. And for me, that's the scary thing, that truth, that narrative gets lost somewhere. And the fact that just something small has happened to them, we're so thankful. You know, oh my goodness, it wasn't completely ignored. But they belong in jail. They should go to jail, because what they did was awful. What they did was, it's classified as a crime in this nation. And if it were to be done by someone other than a white person, there wouldn't even be the question. The question wouldn't be raised that, is it enough for them to be fired? Of course it's not. Like, that question would never come. And I think there would begin to be shifts if our white brothers and sisters would acknowledge the fact that when a white person does something wrong, they never have to fully face the consequences of what has happened to them. I'm reminded of Ahmaud and the fact that when those 2 killers, the father and the son, there was a GoFundMe page that was started, and people were calling them God-fearing people who were apparently doing something amazing. And I fear that Amy Cooper, there'll be enough people around who will want to make sure that, oh, she's been so inconvenienced. She has been, you know, there's this martyrdom that is quickly ascribed to a white person who is caught out, you know, when something they've done is discovered. And there's always someone who's going to rescue them. Amy is going to be rescued. Franklin Templeton may have fired her, but she's going to land on her feet. Yeah. And those 4 policemen, they've been fired, but they're probably not going to go to jail. You know, and for me, that ought to, it breaks my heart. And I think if white people want to be seen as true allies, then their hearts need to be broken by that as well, because it is unjust. It is not right. And I think the way that this pains me as a Black person, the way that it pains Black people on this forum, I think if white people would allow their hearts to be broken, if they would allow their eyes to be opened to the real horror of what is really happening, and not sort of accept the flimsy narrative that, oh, you know, she was having a bad day, or you know, a Black man came towards her in the woods and she was scared. You know, like, if we would just allow the full horror of the things that are really happening to African Americans in this country to visit us and to sit with us, maybe things could begin to change. Thank you, Portia. I think so many things you said
need to be bared down on a little bit. You said we minimize, just how society minimizes the pain of Black people. I think at the same time that our society minimizes the pain of Black people, we sort of maximize the innocence of white people or of individual white people. And what I mean is like we'll minimize the pain of Black people, sort of like with get over it statements, like that was a long time ago, or you should be over that by now, or that happened so long ago, or that was just one situation or whatever. And so there's a minimization of the trauma put upon Black people, while there's sort of a maximization of the innocence of white people, like, well, they were just ... fill in the blank. And that's a part of the systemic racism that I don't think we take or they take account for. You also said Amy will be rescued. And as much as I don't want to agree with that, I have to, because I think you're 100% right. I think you're 100% right. Amy will probably be fine. And I think one of the things that stood out to me about the Amy Cooper video, and we're going to Kelly and Jim Hancock in a moment, but one thing that stood out to me about the Amy Cooper video was at the end when Christian Cooper said, "Thank you." People have said to me, well, what was he thanking her for? And I think what he was thanking her for was just for him to be able to capture it on video, to capture something that happened so often on video that he had a historical record of. It was almost like he's like, thank you, because I try to explain this to white people all the time, because they're constantly minimizing that this is possible. They're constantly saying that this is not possible, that white people do not think this way. As a collective, white people do not think this way. They're constantly saying that. And I think the reason he said thank you was just to say, thank you for the opportunity to let me get this on video so that I can actually share it with my white friends, to share them. This is actually more real than you think. Not only is it more real than you think, it is more sinister than you think. It's more sinister than I've even explained to you before. Like Alicia just said, thank you for showing your ass. Thank you. Thank you. I caught it. And I think what happens a lot of times is people minimize that that's possible. And I think what Christian Cooper did in his video was to say, I'm so thankful. I'm not thankful for this moment, but I'm thankful that I caught it. I'm thankful that I got to capture it, because Amy will go on and Amy will be fine. Going on, Kelly and then Jim.
Yeah, Michelle, thank you for gathering everybody. I find it interesting that it seems, at least as represented on this call, that white men have spoken about not feeling a sense of identity as white. We're not a group, we're not a we. But I have to say that as a white woman, I do feel like, although I may not like it, there's no way around it. I'm a white woman, and that means something. And I have to own that. I have to recognize the power and responsibility of that. I think we all need to look at what that means for ourselves. And so I'm so sorry, and I'm so ashamed. I really am. I believe that racism is embedded in whiteness and the white experience, and that we have a responsibility, and I have a responsibility to investigate that for ourselves, and then do something about it. Be aware. And there's a lot of good ideas being shared on this call, but this is a matter of the heart of a man being murdered in front of us. I'm a white woman, but I'm also the grandmother of a Black 6-year-old granddaughter, and I'm excited to welcome a little Black grandson in September. And of course, that lens expands my view on the world too. But man, I'm just sick. So thank you for creating space.
Thank you, Kelly. Jim. And while Jim is getting ready, we're probably gonna go till 5-ish or so. So so just know that. Jim, I think I saw you unmute.
Yeah, thank you. So this is my confession. What's obvious about me is that I'm an old white guy, 68 years old and 6 weeks. What's not obvious is I'm an old white guy from the deep South. So I have history. I am both embarrassed and ashamed. I'm embarrassed because as a youth worker for a quarter of a century and as a filmmaker for almost 40 years, I have had so little success in doing the things that I said I intended to do, to break barriers between people who look like me and people who don't look like me. But really, I'm ashamed because I've been half-assed about that. 100 years ago, a white man named Upton Sinclair ran for governor of state of California as a sort of protest candidate. He was a journalist and a comic of sorts. One of his stump speeches included the line, "It's difficult to persuade a person he is wrong when his paycheck depends on him being right." And my history is as a man who's been paid mainly by white people to care for their children and to make films for their nurturance and help. And I have come to believe that one way to talk about privilege is that it is not needing to mind when people are damaged, not needing to mind when others suffer, because I go to bed white and I wake up white, and there is in that a privilege that I am privileged to acknowledge or not, because I don't really need to mind about those things. And I'm ashamed that I have not. Of course, we have a white identity. It is, white men have it in particular, and white people have it in general. And we know it without saying a word about it. We worship power. We know that we have unearned power, and we bristle when people tell us that. And we leverage that power every way we can, which is in every way that we wish, most of the time. And we have a tacit agreement that we will never hold each other accountable for wrongdoing, that we will never point the finger, we will never snitch, we will never call each other to account for those things which we have done and for those things which we have left undone. I fear that my ineffectualness is purely down to the fact that I can afford to not care, that I have plenty of things I have done as a young man growing up in the South, raised with the privilege that goes with that, and far more things that I have left undone, for which I am sorry, and for which I beg your forgiveness if you can give it, and for which I pledge to make amends if I can.
Thanks, Jim. I think Christiane is going to share.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. So I've been taking my notes and kind of just processing what others have been saying, but also kind of assessing it through my own little white female Oregonian autistic lens. And you know, I was thinking about how Michelle said, why do we keep hoping for better? And I think that's in a way kind of the Christian person in a fallen world perspective. Like, we know it's supposed to be better. It's not supposed to be this way. I mean, I think that's indicative of
how far off track we are from what it should be. And that part breaks my heart. But also, like, when people are talking about, and it's mostly been white males, yes, who have been saying like there isn't a white community, and I relate to that. I identify as white. I don't feel like I'm part of a white community. As a Scot, I feel more connected with my Scottish community. But maybe the reason that we don't join together as a white community is because we have that privilege. Like, we don't need to depend on each other. Like, we are in a place of privilege where we don't need other white people to support us because we're in the majority. We don't need other people of our color to support us because we're in a place of power. And I think we need to recognize that. Like, in genealogical studies, they, you know, there's a reason there's a Black identity as opposed to like a Malawi identity, as opposed to a Liberian identity, because we as white people, and I'll say this on behalf of white people who owned slaves, I have a few ancestors who did, took that identity, that cultural identity, that national identity away from people that we put into slavery who came from Africa. And so that's why there's a Black identity. I don't think we connect as a white identity because we don't need to. We don't need each other. And I think it's important for white people to learn a little bit more about their own culture as white people, not just like for me, Scottish and my ancestry, but like what it means to have a white culture. What is that power culture that we're descended from? Like, it's uncomfortable, but we have to wrestle with that uncomfortableness. And we have to realize that we're a part of it, even if we don't want to be or don't feel connected to it. Like, we can say we're not part of a white community, but, you know, like, who was it? It was Kim who said, you can go to bed white and wake up white. Like, yeah, we can. And we need to acknowledge that. And I also think that, like, this luxury of not identifying as white, because if, Michelle, you said your 5 reasons why, you know, how you identify yourself, those 5 first things that you come to. White is not in my 5 first things. It isn't. You know, I go female, autistic, Christian, you know, like, white doesn't even enter it. It doesn't. But that's my privilege. And if I can't acknowledge that, then I'm in fault. You know, like, I need to realize that that ability to push the whiteness aside is part of my white privilege, even if I don't feel privileged as someone who grew up poor. And like, that's something a lot of white people wrestle with. They're like, oh, well, I grew up poor, blah, blah, blah. It's like, they don't see the word privilege in the way that it's meant to be communicated, right? Because like, the privilege is your skin is white. And because your skin is white, you can get away with a lot of crap. You can get pulled over by a cop and not worry about your life being taken away. Like some of these little boys that I have taught. And so, anyway, I'm not gonna go into that because I'm getting emotional. But anyway, I just want to say this conversation has been really great to listen to. And I really appreciate all the perspectives. And, you know, I don't know if I can entirely agree with the idea of whiteness as a community, Portia, to your comment. I think we don't like each other or support each other enough to call ourselves a community, but I think we definitely need to hold each other accountable. And as much as whiteness has been fabricated historically, I don't think that excludes us from responsibility from others' actions. So.
Thank you. I think a couple things, Christy, that you said, you know, you said you all don't, you said you don't necessarily associate yourself with whiteness or whatever because, I forget how you said it, but towards the end of what you said you don't really, there is not really a white culture. And I would really challenge white people right now, especially in this moment today, to consider that what we're seeing I mean, what we keep seeing, I think there is a white culture in America. I think there actually is. And while there may be good, beautiful things about that white culture in America, I think it's really important in this moment for white people to accept that this heinous activity and these ugly ways of thinking are part of your culture. That don't feel good to say. It probably don't feel good to hear. But I think today, a bunch of individuals known as white people need to wrestle even with the truth that there is a white culture, especially in America, and part of white culture in America is ugly and violent and disrespectful and murderous. And you need to own that. I'm not saying it because I want you to feel bad. I'm saying it because you should feel bad. Mike Wilson, I think, was the last person in chat who said he wanted to say something. So I'll let that happen. Alicia just said she wants to say something, so I'll let that happen. And then I'll close this.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to add to what Christy just said about the lack of connection with the white community. I think the thing you have to realize that makes Black people distinctive is that while you may not be able to relate to a quote white community, you all still, you know, whether you're Irish, Scottish, Danish, whatever, you all still have the same skin color. Black people, we are distinctive. And so what has happened in this country? The culture has found a way to find that thing that is not like the others. And because the country was founded on this idea of slavery and racism, the distinctive that we will always have, we can't change our skin. We're always going to be Black. The thing you have to understand is that you cannot assimilate us the way that you think you can. That's been, in my opinion, the problem from day one, is that white people, they're like, if we can't assimilate Black folks, then they just need to go back to Africa. No, what you need to understand is that America is not the melting pot that you think it is. I call America more of a tossed salad. We're all individual. We all have our distinctives. You have your distinct style and culture. We have our distinct style and culture. I appreciate my culture. I appreciate the style of Black people. You should appreciate the style and the culture that you come from. Don't try to make us think, act, behave, react the way that you do, because we're just not going to do that. That's just not going to happen. That's what creates the problem, is that white people feel like, well, Black people just need to learn how to be like us, or they just need to accept, you know, what is. No, listen, we have a certain way that we do things, you know, and it's just who we are, you know. So I can understand you can't relate because, you know, your skin is all the same and you may be whatever your heritage is, but you got to understand we're pointed out as distinctive over something that we can't change. We cannot change the fact that our skin is dark, that we have melanin in our skin. We can't change that. And we're individuals. We do things differently. So I think if that right there, if there can be more acceptance of the differences, like I give you a quick example and then I'm done. I went to a way back in the day, we used to have these conferences where the speakers would come. I forgot what it was, some big men's conference. They used to travel all over the nation, and speakers would come, and we had it at the Kingdom in Seattle.
Manpower.
All these speakers, you know, Greg Laurie and all these different speakers would come up and speak. And men, we would, you know, everybody would receive whatever they received from the different speakers. I heard a white man say something after T.D. Jakes got done speaking that offended me greatly. He said, why does he have to yell so much? And it offended me because I thought to myself, why do I have to sit here and listen to the 10 other speakers that are monotone in their presentation, but you can't hear one African-American speaker bring the gravy like we like it? That's who we are, people. Accept us for who we are. We accept you for who you are. Amen. And I'm done. God bless you.
Thank you. Alicia, you're muted. Oh, we almost got through a whole meeting without a mute.
You're good. Well, thank you for holding this space for us today. It's taken a lot on just a toll on my mind, a toll on my body, a toll on my creativity these last few weeks. And from the posts that I've put out, a lot of my white girlfriends, I should say, have reached out and said, how can I connect? How can I be an ally? How can I, do better? And I'm like, for one, it's taxing as hell for me to, not only feel this funk I'm in, and then have to uplift you and have to teach you and have to make sure you're okay with what I'm going to tell you about how hurt I am. It's a lot, and then a part of it is also reflecting and knowing the background history, specifically between white women and Black women, from the Amy Cooper situation. I'm with that behavior. So I'm going to read just a post that I came across and I will be done. It says, how about we explore the dynamic and untreated trauma of the relationship between Black and white women from the system of slavery? White women used us domestically, abused us as punishment, let their men rape us, and then they were jealous of us because their men desired us more. Fast forward to Jim Crow law. They lied and aided in our deaths. This doesn't just go away from the Black woman's memory of the stories passed down or the opinions and behaviors that have developed over generations of untreated trauma. White women get to be ignorant because none of it has been done to them. And the modern white woman bears no compassion, no responsibility for a combined history that modern Black women still suffer from today.
Wow. Thank you. We're going, you guys, Leroy and Nicole. And then I think I'm closing it if nobody else says something.
Michelle, first of all, thank you. Thanks for doing this today. It's a really important conversation. My input and thought process is there's a danger that I want to name. And the danger is, for many people of color, the danger is the white person you love, right? The white person you love is dangerous because they have family and friends and privilege. And they could feel like they're down because they are good with you and you with them, but they still enjoy privilege. That's the most dangerous person to us. There is no pass. No white person has a pass. You are all guilty. You might be down, but you're guilty. Because we can think of white people that we love and who are a part of our lives and who we enjoy, some may even be married to. That person is guilty and dangerous if they don't understand that. Second piece is women of color have told us how to vote over and over and over again, and we have ignored them. They vote in the 95th 5+ percentile against some of these people that are in office. The day of reckoning for many is coming in November because the chief racist is in the White House, and we got to get them out. Rubber's got to meet the road. So those are my 2 points. The white person you love is dangerous, and we got to get the chief racist out of the White House. Thanks for letting me speak in.
Thank you. Nicole, Anthony, and then after Nicole, I think it's John.
Hi guys, I hope you can hear me. I'm actually in my car. But I've been listening. I went to Ace Hardware and I've just been totally engrossed with what you're saying. I'm laughing to myself in the stores. People think I'm going crazy. And I'm not laughing as a joke. I'm laughing because what you're saying, all of you collectively, it hits home to me. I have a perspective somewhat similar to Portia. I wasn't born in the United States. I call it these here United States. I was born in the Caribbean, a former British colony, so slavery is part of my history. But the difference from a Caribbean perspective to a North American perspective is that I know when slavery was abolished in my country. I know the day that my country became a republic, and I'm proud of that. What I have seen in the 17, 18 years of my being here as a U.S. citizen is that slavery is still ingrained. Unfortunately, it's ingrained still in the psyche and definitely in the culture of America. And it is part of white American culture. Black Americans have inherited. I have a 16-year-old son who has inherited, he's going to be a character, or he's inherited a characterization of a male black youth who might be seen as a threat. And it is the saddest conversation that I have to speak with him on a daily basis. And he hasn't even left the home as yet. It's the weirdest conversation to equip a young man to have, as opposed to saying, hey, you can live anywhere in this United States. I literally have to tell him, yeah, you could do that, but you might want to be careful of Georgia, or you might want to be careful and I list off a couple of states. I always say, you cannot change what you don't acknowledge. And if white Americans, white females in particular, if we do not acknowledge, and Black America as a whole, to be honest with you, if we do not acknowledge that we have not addressed racism, really addressed it, and the issue of privilege, nothing is going to happen. I hate to say it. We're going to have another week with maybe 5 to 10 random instances of fatalities with Black Americans. I see privilege, white privilege, like an old credit card. Some of these places have now, let's say JCPenney or one of these companies that have now gone bankrupt, right? You still have the credit card, right? You may not use it. You may not have to use it, but you have it. And that to me is what white privilege is having the card. You may not need to use it, but you got it. Other people don't have it. It'll never come to them. They don't qualify. They don't have the rating. They don't have the credentials. They can't fall back on it if and when needed. But white privilege is something that white Americans do. And I just pray that these conversations keep coming up in all forums, Facebook, Zoom, amongst your friends. I think that's very important. Having it with your friends, those who you consider to be close. You'd be surprised that they're not as close as you thought. And much of the time, it's just an ignorance of what racism really looks like. But we need to have these conversations. Mm-hmm. If they're your friends, they're going to love you. And they're going to go home and marinate on what you said. And you're going to marinate on what they said. But you're going to come back as a stronger people. Bless you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'm going to go John, Archer, and Millicent. And then I'm pretty sure I'm going to close it after that.
Thanks. I think one idea that's come up a number of times in the last 2 hours and a little bit is what do white people do? Once we are aware, or even getting aware, how do we get there? And I think there's a couple things that stick out to me as important to understand. And one thing is that this is messy and it's awkward and it's uncomfortable and there is a cost and a pain to it. And it's important to dive in and dig. And Rich expressed earlier, I believe it was Rich, worry of not having the right words. And that can't stop us from jumping in and figuring it out. Eventually we'll figure it out, but it's hard because a lot of things are interconnected. You know, we've talked in this discussion about culture, we've talked about community, we've talked about identity, and there are lots of overlaps with those things, but they can be separated out as well. You know, for me, just sharing from my story and kind of piggybacking off of what some people have said earlier, one point Michelle brought up that I thought is really worth reiterating is there is not enough interaction of people who are different. For the most part, we hang out and spend time with people who are like us, whether that's socioeconomically, whether that's racially, whether that's religiously, whatever. And one step we as white people can take is to branch out of that, right? To interact with different people and to really listen and absorb and just try to take in what is being shared, recognizing someone can have a very different experience than the experience I had, and those can coexist, you know. And personally, from my own experience, I think there's great transformative power in listening to the stories of people and their experiences in their lives. I'm an educator. I've been teaching for 10 years. And 7 years ago, when I'd been in this for 3 years, I took a class about transforming schools with a focus on race and ethnicity. And we had a panel of students who spoke to us and said, these are things that happened to me in school. This is something a teacher said to me in school. And that was the experience for me, hearing their stories, to really get me to think about myself. And that led to this awareness that I had never had before because of what I like to call my privilege of ignorance. I get to live in a world where I don't have to think about those things all the time. But once I'm interacting with other people, now I'm aware of that. And one thing Rich shared earlier that I really resonated with is that when we talk about equity and we talk about culture and community identity, for a lot of white people, this is like a different language that we don't really understand. And we hear bits and pieces and try to put these full fluent sentences together and stumble along the way. And so there is this very legitimate question of where do we as white people figure out how to do this? And I hear a lot of exhaustion from African American and people of color who have shared today, saying white people do not come to us. And I get that. But there is still a question for a lot of white people, where do we go and who can help us? And the answer has to be ourselves, you know, with the support of people who are aware. And you, Michelle, also raised the question, you know, of what can we do? Someone was bringing it up earlier, you know, go to the city council and figure out what the laws say. And you kind of challenged that and said, okay, but what about now, today, here, where the rubber meets the road? And I think that when we dive into this and we become aware, we start to understand as white people, it's not just these extreme cases of, you know, flagrant racism. There's a whole system of whiteness and oppression underneath that, that a lot of white people, we don't recognize and we don't understand. But once we start to learn, we can dig into that and tear apart that and say, you know what, you said that and you acted like you were joking, but I don't think that's actually funny, because I think there's racism there, you know, or challenging people that spread things on social media or at your workplace, whatever it is, and recognizing, oh, you unmuted me and then I muted myself back. There's going to be a cost, you know. I will share, this will be the last thing and then I'll move on, and I'm not trying to get pats on the back and anyone say, good job, John Archer, because I have a whole lot of room to grow. But, you know, in my workplace, I had a meeting with a superior where I said, you know, there are not very many people of color here. As our school district begins to hire more people of color, how are you as our supervisor going to help facilitate that? And that led to some conversations where I asked some people of color to come in and help facilitate this discussion with our supervisor. And he was not prepared for that. We were too far ahead, too many steps ahead. He did not speak the same language we were speaking. And it had some consequences. He literally did not talk to any of us for 2 months, right? It was kind of an awkward, hostile environment, but I'm still there. And we as white people have to sit in that. And that's how we can use our privilege to lift up the voices of other people and educate other white people.
Michelle, I'm sorry, can I just respond really quick to that as an educator as well? You said we don't spend enough time together. You said that you sat about 7 years ago and you sat into a meeting where you heard some stories and that kind of made you feel like, yes, now I can kind of relate to what's going on. My question to all of you, and I say all of you meaning white people, how many stories now do you need to hear? How many stories do you need to hear? Unlike in the days when I was growing up where there was no social media, if a person in my neighborhood got shot in Chicago along my street, we knew about it, and then the neighbors knew about it, and then word of mouth got it out to everybody else. Today, a man can be killed in public, in front of millions of people by a police officer, and the story is spread around the world. How many stories do you need to hear before you say, damn it, that is too much? I'm tired of being mad with me because I got comfortable around all the people I work with, the white people I work with who are nice to me. They're so nice to me, and they're nice to me in front of me, and they might say nice things about me to other people, but they're not gonna stand up with me. They're not gonna fight for me. And so I get mad because I fell asleep. I fell asleep on the white people again. I'm like, oh my God, they voted Obama in, so man, we good now. They're starting to see it. And then 2016 comes along and I go, how did I fall asleep on so many white people who hated black people? There are enough stories to last us a lifetime, I promise you, that you don't have to hear any new stories. We don't need to hear another new story about another black man or black person being killed unjustly. There are enough stories to last us a lifetime.
Preach, Doc.
I want to jump in, if I could, for just a second. And I apologize for jumping out of turn. For the record, Michelle told me to jump in. I just want to say, with all due respect, John, that very mentality is exactly what white privilege is, and the thing that we, me and you, and other people who look like us should be fighting against. The idea that the education of what's happening in the world with African Americans is somehow on them to tell us because it's not our experience. It is our experience. It's a human experience. There is way too much information out there. The gentleman just said, there has been way too many stories, and we all know this stuff. And I mean this respectfully, but it's that mentality that we somehow put the responsibility and the burden back on Black people to do something about the very situation that they have no control over being put in, period. So the very system that is set up to benefit us is the system that is created to oppress them. And the only way that's going to change is if people like you and I continue to seek out the information, seek out the opportunities to use our privilege to affect some sort of change or to be a part of some sort of solution, if one even exists. And at the end of the day, the responsibility is on us. It
Absolutely.
is on us.
Mm-hmm.
It is on us.
I think, though, that there is this lack of awareness, and a lot of people I'm reading comments are shocked by that, but we need to accept there is that reality. A lot of white people don't understand, and it's not until on an individual
Accepting the reality
personal
of the
level.
lack of awareness, I'm sorry to cut you off, but accepting the reality of the lack of awareness is not on the responsibility of someone else to educate them. That's like saying, well, I don't know how to, that's like saying, I don't know how to play the piano because some piano player didn't teach me how to play. No, I don't know how to play the piano because I didn't seek out the information to learn how to play the piano, period. So at the end of the day, I appreciate what you're saying, and I hope you don't receive this as combative. But at the end of the day, it is us that should speak up, and I say this in love and try to use it as a teachable moment. I have seen way too many of this, and way too many people who look like me continuing to further the idea of excuses and privilege. All that does is just further the problem. If we're really interested, we're all on this Zoom because I assume we're interested in being part of a solution if one exists. So my only challenge to you and to anyone else is that we seek those opportunities out and seek out the information if we don't know it. There's enough literature out there. There are enough civil leaders out there, enough social activists out there, enough people on social media alone to provide any information. And if you need more, come to my page, because I'm actively seeking that information and I'm sharing it. And I'm speaking, with anyone that I can. I've sent messages to Pastor Jamal Bryant out of Atlanta. I've been in talks with people from Sean King's camp. It should be us who are actively seeking out opportunities to affect change, using our privilege to affect change instead of just continuing to benefit from it. The education that can come from African Americans, even though there are some that are exhausted in teaching us and educating us, that's fine. There are some out there who will provide information. Take what you can get, and if you can't find anything else out of that, seek out other information. There's plenty of outlets out there.
Thank you. Thank you, Amber.
Thank you.
And I would like to say, I am not trying to excuse anybody from action at all, especially white people. In my experience, hearing individual personal stories has been what has transformed me and my mind to take action. So,
hold on a sec. Hold on one sec, John. I think I hear you. And I just want to make sure you're here. When you say in your personal experience, hearing the individual stories, I want to make sure you don't get lost that Isaiah said you have plenty of stories. There are plenty of stories at this point. Like, you hearing it directly from me, that should not add to your arsenal of stories at this point.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree. And I think this gets into the complexity of it, whereas part of our whiteness and our identity and our lack of understanding of racism as a collective, not as individuals, we have the privilege to distance ourselves from that. So I would say pretty confidently, a lot of white people can see these headlines and never make a connection between that and themselves, or that and their family. And so for me, the thing that bridged that gap was personal stories.
But you not making you or who about not making the connection can no longer be my problem. Can no longer be the problem of Black people to constantly.
I agree.
Do the story again and again and again.
I'm not saying that it should be. I'm saying coming into this conversation, you titled it A Chat with White Folks. And a number of times people have shared, and either in the comments here in Zoom or on Facebook, have said, what are white people thinking? What are white people doing? What can white people do? And so while this has been absolutely, like you started out, a place to lament and a place to challenge white people to feel, and to feel the weight and the heaviness, for me, there is also a need to share what can be done, because white people, like Amber was saying, we have to do something, and it involves our own learning. But like we've all said, learning and sharing on Facebook is simply not enough. And I think, we have to get it to an internal place, because it's not. For white people, there's this ambiguous whiteness.
Then what I would like is for you to work. I would like you to work on white people to fix that.
Yes, and
white people fix that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Millicent.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Michelle. I unfortunately didn't get to listen to the entire conversation, but the parts that I have had the opportunity to listen to have obviously been very interesting. But I was intrigued when I saw that this was happening, and while at work, I was able to find time to be a part of this conversation. So again, I want to thank you. I got something sticky on my hand. And I have on black jeans and a black shirt. And I have this black stuff on my hand that I cannot get off. I have to live with this black stuff on my hand, on my arms, on my face. I don't want to really get it off, but this right now, it's bothering me. And so I'm trying to wipe it off. But I can't wipe off my Blackness. I can't wipe it off. And so I try to put myself in environments where I don't feel like I have to wipe it off. I believe people are inherently good. Call that naive. I don't know. That's how I was raised, even though my parents were raised in the South, experienced all types of challenges. Sorry. As a Black person growing up in the South, all types of racism, all types of actions against them, houses bombed, run off the road with a tractor when a child, and my grandfather could do nothing about it for my mother. Little stuff like that. But when I was in high school, I made a determination that at least for a little while, I'm not gonna have to wipe off my Blackness. I wanna go someplace where I can just be and be loved and be respected and be seen for what I am and what I bring. And even when I don't bring my all, still loved and respected or nurtured and protected. So I chose to go to an historically Black college university. I went to Florida A&M. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And I went there because just for 4 years, I wanted, and this is when I was 17. For 4 years, I just want to know what it's like not to have to wake up every day and feel like there's an attack, feel like there's a judgment, feel like I have to perform 10 times better than whomever just to be considered half as good, knowing that that's not even a question. And that's not cockiness, that's confidence. I know that there are very few instances in which if I choose to engage, I'm not gonna come out victorious, not gonna do well, all those things. And I'm thankful for parents that instilled that in me, that, you know, whatever you wanna do, you can. But the reality is that whatever I wanna do is still very, very hard to do. And so now, here I am, 50 years later, well, not 50 years later from high school, but, you know, I'm 50 years old, been Black 50 years, know what that feels like for 50 years. And I have an adult son, beautiful, beautiful, brown, loving, gentle, compassionate, kind, trusting Black son, who also lives with a disability, and from time to time can't communicate clearly what's happening. It may choose the wrong word, and when in a stressful situation, may not say anything at all. Who has utmost respect for authority. And right now, aside from what's happening with COVID, so he's scared to go outside from that. But every day, while he's trying to live his best life and entertain children all across the country reading books and do all, he's like, what is happening, Mom? I don't want to go outside. And I don't want to let him go outside. And when he goes, I want to go with him because I want to be able to protect him. But I can't even protect him because a Black woman in this country trying to protect her Black son? What? Do all the right things. Make all the right choices. Blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter. And so every day I'm having to go home, talk to my son about stuff that I shouldn't have to talk to him about. So he has autism, and we have a little autism card in his wallet, but I'm scared for him to reach for his wallet if he needs to present why he can't communicate because he has autism, because last time I checked, y'all were stomping somebody in the ground who had autism and shooting their caretaker. What is that? What is that fear that you have? Why is love not the first choice? Why is fear the first choice? Why do you continue to believe the negative things that are stirred around in our community, in the community? Why do you latch on black crime? Well, if you live around 85% black folks and you committing crimes, you're doing it to black folks. Guess how much white on white crime there is? 85%, because you're doing crimes in proximity. All the things that just make just going to the grocery store, just walking. I couldn't even let my kid take the garbage out in a gated community because I was afraid that something was going to happen to him. This wonderful, beautiful, you know him, Michelle, wonderful, beautiful child.
Yeah.
Who the world is robbing him of the opportunity to be wonderful and beautiful.
Yeah.
And how do I, as a parent who loves, and loves hard and loves deeply and loves everybody, not necessarily because I always want to, but because I'm commanded to.
Yeah.
You know, how do I reconcile that? How do you?
I don't think there is any reconciling it today. Yeah. Like, I don't think there's a way for you to make sense of it today other than for us to accept the depth of the systemic oppression, the systemic racism that we live in. I don't think there's any other way. I don't think there is any other way to reconcile that. A lot of times when I hear maybe some gossip or something from somebody, Isaiah and I have had this conversation many times, maybe not gossip, but when I hear somebody did something, I ask him, you know, who did that? And he'll tell me, or he or whoever, they'll tell me who did it. And I'll say, oh, well, if you consider the source, that makes sense that that person does that. That person has a history of doing that. So I'm not surprised. Whether it's good or bad, whether it's good or bad, I'm like, oh, well, if you consider the source, then there's nothing really to reconcile here. It makes total sense. And I think the same way for this country. I think the same way for our society. If you consider the source of this country, then there's nothing extra to reconcile. I'm not confused about what I saw today, yesterday, 2 weeks ago, a month ago, a year ago. I'm not confused about what I'm seeing. I'm not confused about why it exists. I've been nice about what I see. I've been gracious. I've been
because if we stop being nice, then they're really, I mean, because if we got some hint up stuff, y'all don't know how.
Yeah, white folks, you're lucky. You're lucky.
You are so lucky
to us. Let me just say this, and we're gonna jump off. If there's a call for us to do this again in some way, we will. Literally, I sat on my couch last night and just felt led. I'm gonna say led to do this today. If there's a call similar to that, or even one that is of the mind, because I believe God moves in our thinking and in our planning as much as he moves in the moment and by his spirit. And so whether God moves on me or us again by his spirit, or in some way he moves on us in our thinking to plan for another occasion to come together, we'll do it. We'll seek to do that. But I want to thank everybody who's been a part of this conversation today. I wanted to end with just two things. I want to show a short little video. It's 30 seconds. And I want to show that just after I say my last thought. When I was talking to my white friend, I have lots, but this particular one this morning, and I was explaining to him the process that I had gone through from sitting on the couch yesterday to having this call for a chat with white folks. I said to him, I said to him the thing about it wasn't enough. Whatever my white friend online had posted, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. And he said, what did you want them to say? And this kind of goes back to what Jim Hancock said already. I said, I want my to say they're embarrassed. That's what I want. I want my white friends, in addition to feeling a sense of communal shame, rather than my white friends saying, I'm praying for my Black friends, I'm in solidarity with my Black friends, Black Lives Matter, or whatever the hashtag of the day is. Instead of that, what I want is I actually want my white friends to say they're embarrassed. And I'm thankful that Jim, who is probably the oldest, especially oldest white person on the call, and the oldest white male on the call, you didn't know that, but I'm thankful for myself that I got to hear an old white man say he's embarrassed. And I'm not saying that to make you feel good. I'm actually saying that I thank God for the answer to prayer today. Was I just wanted to hear a white person say they were embarrassed for themselves. And so I'm thankful for that, for this moment. And I wish, again, as I said at the very beginning of this, I wish again that that was a sentiment that the community of white folks would own more readily. Even if you don't think you're a community, I wish that the community of white folks that I know, that I have seen, I wish the idea of being embarrassed by this behavior and by these outcomes, by these situations, I wish that that was a little bit more prevalent. So I'm just gonna take a win that I got to hear one white person today say they were embarrassed. And you can take that however you want. I'm gonna show this video, and then what I'd like to do is say a prayer after that, and then we'll leave. I know I'm gonna ask Pastor Mike Dean to pray after we watch this video. I want to make sure I can share the. I'm going to start it, and you guys can tell me if you can hear it or not. I'm not sure if I got the controls right, but we'll try it. Can you hear it? No. Okay, hold on. Let me try again. When I play a video and I want to make sure you hear it, what do I hit? Does anybody know? I go to the microphone.
Need to share screen, Michelle.
Oh, I haven't shared screen yet?
No.
No, I think the screen is shared. I think we could hear it. I don't know if it was clear though.
Okay, hold on a second.
Maybe play it a little longer so we can see.
Yeah, let me try it again. The question the reporter asked was, what's it gonna take for you guys to be okay and go home and just stop protesting? And the young man said, this is not us. This is a response. This is a response. This is not a pro-action. This is a response. So we can't change until you change. Pastor Mike, would you pray?
All right, let's pray. God, those of us who know you and know your gospel, we know that when you come back, all this will be made right. But that ain't here yet. And today, there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of sadness. The injustice is unbearable, and it feels unbearable. And sometimes it feels hard to want to be in this world with a system, a people, a whiteness, a privilege that seems to constantly be on the attack against people who look like me. And so God, I just pray that this conversation would hit everyone wherever it needs to hit them. I pray that it not just be a conversation, but that from it there be work. And that's not separate from your gospel. It's not just a belief and a faith that's placed in you. From that, you give us the Spirit of God to go and to do work toward your ends. And justice is your end. Wholeness is your end. Calling out injustice and wrong and evil and the works of Satan, that is toward your end. So God, I just pray that you would give us the courage and that you would give us the wisdom on how to do so. God, I pray that some white people on this call today feel some responsibility to the point that it moves them to action, that they might put action to the words of love, to the feelings of love, and put some stuff at risk for the sake of the good of the world, but for the sake of the Black people that they say that they love. And God, I pray that you would please be with us who are struggling in these moments and who continuously get triggered and reminded of how Black we are, how unwanted we are, how how much it sucks to be in a place, yet it's a place that we love. And God, I just pray that you would teach us how to live in that tension. And I pray that you would guard our hearts, because a lot of bitterness should be the result of this continuous onslaught. The desire for vengeance and retaliation should be the response. That's the natural response. That's the least you could expect from a people who continuously experience this. And so, God, I know that for me, the only way I don't go there is that you would be my protection and that you would guard my mind and guard my heart. God, all of the way around, I pray that you would teach us how to love. And ultimately for me, because I do believe in Christ and I believe in the gospel, I pray that we would come to know it and know it fully. Not the type of gospel that where you can say you love Jesus and then kill off Native Americans, or say you love Jesus and then enslave Black people and whip them and commit adultery with their wife. Like not that kind of Christianity, but I pray that we would truly get to understand and know that Jesus came to disrupt this type of evil system, this corruption. And I pray that we would detach ourselves, this Christianity that we think we know, from this country that we say we love. And I pray that we would understand that your kingdom comes to bring a divide between the two. God, I pray that we would really be your disciples, that we would really be about your business for your glory and for our good. I thank you for Michelle. I pray that you would protect her. I pray that you would strengthen her. I pray that you would comfort her, that you would surround her with your love and with her Black people that she needs to feel healed and whole in this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Love you, Shelley.
I'll be the last one out the room. I don't have much left for extended conversation, but I'll hug you as you leave. God bless you guys. If you've been here this long, you've been here as long as a Black church service. So,
Amen. I ate 3 meals in this
I
service.
saw you. I watched you.
I like that matters though. Antoine,
Michelle, thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Ramel. Thank you.
Love you.
The full thing will be posted at some point when it saves.
How do I get out of here?
Hit leave.
Oh.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Shell.
Hey, Mama Robert, love you.
Love y'all.
Thank you, Michelle.
Love y'all.
Isaiah, I'm going to shoot you an email.
Yes, sir. Is it about them shoes? Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Five.
Terry.
High five.
Bye, Michelle.
Love y'all. Bye, y'all.
No.
Bye, Amber. Good to meet you. Good to see you. Antoine, you still eating. Why? What is it?
I'm cleaning. I'm cleaning.
Why do we need to watch you clean your teeth? Why?
Because I'm scared I'm gonna miss something, so I gotta.
You're not. I'm just saying bye. You're so stupid. Mary, I see that heart. I see that love. Thank you. Love you back. Love you
We
back.
love you, Michelle.
Love you too, Mike. Love y'all.
All right, Lang.
See y'all. I'm going to close us out. God bless y'all. Have a nice night.
Peace.
Peace, Zay.
What's up,
good
Zay?
with you, Doc? What's going on, black people?
You know I love you, man.
Oh, and Mary and John. Hey.
I'm trying to go, okay?
Bye, y'all.
Peace, y'all.